So we'll be focusing mostly on the mission control roadmap update that we published today. We published it about 4 hours ago, so I just sent the link of the Medium article in chat. Stephanie, let us know when you're ready to record, and then we can get to the dev update and then start talking through the roadmap. Okay, well, recording's on. So, Charlie, why don't you take it away?
All right, will do. Um, Excuse me, everybody, if you hear a little grinding in the background. It's
Can you
it's a
try
little
getting a little
frustrating.
closer to your mic as well? You're pretty
Okay, I can.
faint.
Yeah. Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay, thanks.
All right, that should be better, right?
Yep, much better. Thank you.
It's been a big week. Got in-game swap released. So that is out there. If I hope people have tried it. It's actually a really nice little experience. We also have notifications as well, so you can go look at notifications now, and hopefully around the expansion missions, you can see some. And then in particular, and then so we've done that. We've got some slight changes to the hazard odds. I don't know if you want to say anything just briefly about that, Hunter, but those have gone out today as well. So we've got that going on. And then we also have put out some mobile enhancements as well. So the mobile experience for Mission Control in particular should be looking much better and be much more intuitive. So we've done that. So we have a lot that kind of has gone out this week, has gone out today. And then in addition to that, we're working on really doing a lot of improving the mobile experience throughout the entirety of the site. So you should be seeing that in the coming week. And then in addition to that, we're also have pretty much we pretty much done all the development we needed to do on the storage and decay. It's dev complete. We're now in testing. We'll obviously fix any issues that we find in testing. But again, that should be that's going to be something we're going to be testing here for a little bit, maybe probably for the duration of next week as well, and then we're going to release it the week after. And then in addition to all of that, we've also made a lot of good progress on Outpost Surge. We've got astronauts and vehicles. We're working on hazard gameplay now. I'm going to be concentrating on that for the rest of the week. So just a lot of great dev work's been done this week. We've also done, we've got a lot of good functionality out there, and I hope you all are enjoying it.
Cool.
And that's the report.
Thanks, Charlie. And anyone who has questions on that or wants to comment on anything in particular, feel free to drop it in the chat. But the in-game swap, like Charlie said, is out. That was big release this week. That is going to essentially be a piece of the puzzle in terms of getting, the ease of using the economy into the game. The swap is live. So the hazards update, I think there were some very small changes done to the odds of certain climate data triggering a hazard. These are things that I don't believe it changes much, but I think it was something to do with just the dust storms and static storms. We can look at what exactly frequency is not changed, impact's not changed, any of those things. It's simply a couple of the climate variables I think have slightly increased odds, but it's not changing the frequency or impact. So don't worry. It was just a very small adjustment that shouldn't affect anyone. So the next thing is storage and decay. So storage and decay is a big feature that will go into the game for basically regulating the resource amounts. So resource amounts that, like, essentially think of storage being the max amount that you can store of a certain resource based on the quantity of collection strength you have of certain item types. So this basically makes it a little bit more realistic in terms of storing power. You can't store infinite power if you don't have battery arrays. Things like food, you need to have storage facilities and greenhouses. And that's something we always wanted to put in. So we finally have it working in development. And we'll be testing it throughout the week, like Charlie said. And it's looking really nice. You guys also probably noticed you also probably noticed the notifications and how that's affecting sort of the ability for you to track check-ins for expansion missions and that sort of thing. We're also extending it to skills and innovations and various other like achievements. So you can know when you have new skills and check those out and keep track of those. Any thoughts on how we will store data? Good question there. So data is going to be stored in the communication array, the inflatable laboratory, and the field laboratory. So think of those as kind of this, where the data related to research, related to experiments, and related to like comms would be stored. So we use those three pieces of equipment. And the communication array has like a certain storage capacity per collection strength, inflatable laboratory, and field laboratory. We'll publish the numbers of all of the storage next week. And that will be like a Medium article on storage and decay. The decay is essentially a 20% rate. So if you have, for instance, like 100 capacity and your balance is 180, then your balance will be reduced by 16, which is 20% of that 80 excess. So 16 per hour. So basically, you can still have excess. It just gets decayed by 20% each hour. And then it goes basically back down to the very close to the maximum storage capacity you have. And the way to increase your storage capacity is to buy more collection strength of one of the items that enables additional storage. Okay, so how will storage decay work regard to user being able to move resources to their external wallet? Is the cost of moving resources out of the game enough to not make that workaround? Yeah, so right now the cost to withdraw resources from the game is 2%. We are planning on increasing this to 4% on around July 15th, which is also when we're going to do the Martia emissions halving. And then we plan on having the withdrawal fee increase on like a monthly basis until it basically goes up to 50 or 60%, and then we're going to turn off withdrawals. So it will be sort of a slow increase in the withdrawal fee until we turn off withdrawals eventually. Obviously, we're trying to encourage people to keep resources into the game because it's really meant to be a utility token that is used in the resource chain. Resources will also be really valuable for land as well as crafting, which I'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, in July, when we release storage and decay, the fee will go up and then continue to go up for just resource withdrawals. Will resource deposits ever be turned off? So we're not planning on turning deposits off. that's something that we would want to keep open so you can continue to deposit things into the game from resources. Love the notifications. Thanks, guys. Awesome. Glad you're liking them. Yeah, I think it's a really good solution, and it's kind of nice to have it at the top level. So, and also go check out the game on mobile because lots of updates have been published for the mobile layout. We were playing the game on mobile this week, and pretty much everything in the game is now functional on mobile. You can even sign transactions and all that stuff. So very nice. And so let's move on to all the awesome stuff. Like we did a lot of really great thinking, helping with, essentially clarifying the future of mission control. Thank you to some of the community members who gave us input on this and also gave us feedback on the last couple of weeks of discussions. So, as we always say, we want to develop this alongside the community and really build the game that we all want to play. So, the culmination of that is what the Medium article is that I just basically published this morning. So you guys can check that out. And I'm going to go through it kind of top to bottom. I'll skip over the in-game swap and the storage and decay because Charlie did a great job of eloquently and poetically explaining what's going on there. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you very much, Hunter. I appreciate those kind words.
All right, so let's go through the next thing on the list, which is dun, dun, dun. Yeah, the Martia emissions halving. So Martia emissions go into the game hourly. And right now, they're basically going into the game based on a percentage of the remaining supply. And what we will be doing on July 15th is having that process. So effectively, the Martia going into the game and into the operative program will be cut in half and then continue to decay at the rate of the remaining supply. So that's essentially elongating the rewards distribution of Martia. And a lot, also all of the Martia that's in circulation now. We're designing additional features to encourage use of Martia within the game. Consumption rates remain the same, correct? So consumption rates of resources will remain the same. I believe that's what you mean. None of the items in the game consume Martia, unless I'm having a brain shut off. Does Lore Story still on the decks? Hello, devs. Hello, team. Sorry for my... Oh, does Lore... So, yeah, the lore, we are exploring a lot in Martian Resident, and we definitely need to chat again, Gunner, just kind of get you caught up. I think it'd be really fun to add some lore to the land release. We're going to do land pretty soon here. And I want to get into that because there's basically two things I really wanted to talk through with you guys, which is number one, parts, which are a new type of NFT that's going to be coming to the game. This was a solution that we kind of were bouncing around for a while and looking at different ways to start handing power and decision making into players in terms of how to expand and shape the main settlement, and then also how to extend this into land. So we're super excited about it. We think it's going to be a really nice addition to the game and start creating some fresh gameplay strategies. So parts represent components of manufacturing items for Mars. And initially, there will be about 25 different parts. Think of parts being things like microprocessors, sensor arrays, water purifiers, navigation systems, power cells. Like those are essentially what the parts are. So they're different things that make up an item, like a solar panel array, or a fission reactor, or a fuel generator. So we're basically breaking down the common elements of the items that are already in the game, and those will be the parts. So each item in the game will have a crafting recipe where you can build that item with a combination of parts as well as Martia, resources, and base cards. So this is and the crafting will result in an ownership card or a sponsorship card. So what we're essentially introducing is a way to craft an ownership card of your choice through parts as well as resources, Martia, and a combination of base cards. So there's two ways to acquire parts. The first one is expansion missions. So to answer your question there, Manja, the number of parts that are going into circulation, it is limited based on the payloads of expansion missions. And then there will also be a limitation based on essentially supply and demand economics. So for expansion missions, ownership cards as whole cards for the payloads will get phased out of upcoming expansion mission payloads. Think of this basically starting in July, probably in about 4 weeks. And instead, parts will be sent on payloads for surplus convoy and construction missions. So this will really allow players to target the parts they need, and the parts that they need will be based on the ownership cards they want. So, there's naturally a regulation of the amount of parts based on the size of the payload. There will obviously be a lot more parts than the current ownership cards as well. And so you'll have a higher, likelihood of getting a part if you're contributing data, construction materials, or fuel to a mission. So it's also really good because, we want more people involved in building ownership cards and being a part of that system. So, this kind of allows you to build to an ownership card over a period of time rather than being like super lucky and getting an ownership card off of a mission unless you're a whale. So we all know the pain. And so there's essentially, that's kind of the future of expansion missions, is you'll be contributing for parts. We also think parts is kind of a nice lore tie-in to expansion missions, because parts would naturally be part of rocket convoys as well as surplus. And you would use parts, in construction. You're not just going to be like 3D printing every single thing. So, yeah, the new thing here is parts. I'm going to probably say parts about 100 times in this. So just maybe take a shot of tequila every time I do it. Not you, Charlie. You still have to work today.
Oh, man. Oh, okay. All right.
All right. So that's expansion missions. The second way to get parts is to salvage base cards. So, basically, you'll be able to craft parts by burning base cards, as well as Martia and some resources. There's a higher chance of parts the more rare the base card is that you burn. And so we're still working out all the formulas here, but imagine if you burn a dark matter card, you're going to have a higher chance of getting parts that are less common. We are going to just start with all the same rarity parts, but some will be like rarer in terms of percentage than others. So, there will be things like wiring will be more common than things like microprocessors. So, we're going to balance it based on the crafting recipes, and the crafting recipes will be tied to the engineering as close as we can. So, but this is also really cool because it obviously kind of encourages people to sweep the floor of base cards and burn those. I think we can all agree there's a bit of an oversupply of base cards. And so, this is a way to get parts by burning base cards. And it's basically going to reduce the supply of base cards across the board quite a bit. We will also be phasing out base cards as a payload element on expansion missions. So, you'll still be able to buy base cards in the store, and there's already a mechanism to increase the price as people purchase base cards in the store. But the base cards will be used to get parts. Those are the only two ways to get parts right now. There is a third way tied to land, which I'll get into in a minute. But I just want to make sure I read all of the tequila gifts. So let me look here.
Lols.
All right. Will it be possible to disassemble ownership cards for salvage parts? So we probably won't have ownership card salvaging just because that can be detrimental to the game. We don't want people salvaging all of the ownership cards of a certain type. So I don't know if there's really a way for us to do that, unless perhaps we regulate the Martia cost for salvaging ownership cards so that it's a lot higher for like the very last ownership card of that type. But for now, the plan is just to do base cards in the salvage. I do like the idea of finding parts on the mini game, though. That's a great idea. So we might look at doing that, because we want to bring that back, and it's a fun game. We also have some ideas on how to make it. We're talking about the expedition mini game here, by the way. But yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, so feel free to put any more questions about parts into the chat. And maybe Gunnar, we can create some cool, even like text-based scavenger stories about parts would be really fun with AI tools. So yeah, I like that a lot. And we'll put more info about the parts specifically in an upcoming Medium article. So just to kind of give you a sense of timing on all this, like Charlie said, we are testing storage and decay. And then the next thing we will be working on is parts implementation, which basically involves updating the expansion mission payloads and then also adding in a whole new type of crafting recipe in our crafting system. We think that will probably take us, sometime into July. My goal would be for the team to be able to release parts in July, just to kind of get you guys a sense of timing. So, things should be coming pretty quickly. All right. So, what happens after, we get all of that work done or close to done? Well, we are going to shift our focus to the next major gameplay update for Mission Control, which is Land. And before I move on to that, I will answer your question there, Michael. Will it be possible for astronaut labor to be stored? The answer to that is yes. And we're actually giving a storage capacity to astronauts. So, for instance, engineering labor will be stored with engineers, civil engineers, and geologists. So there will be storage capacity for astronauts. It's smaller relative to other storage items, but we basically thought it made sense to add that because people can kind of store energy and work even if they're not working initially. So that's kind of the thought there. Will all this Martia used for new features be burned? So I honestly think we should burn quite a bit of this. So I don't know the exact amount of this, but I think just generally speaking, it's probably the best move for us to burn quite a bit of it from these new features. So that's my advice. So yeah. Are solar flares considered as base cards to craft parts? We are looking at solar flares, like potentially just one solar flare card for some of the, at least for the ownership card crafting. Potentially for parts as well, but there's only 100 potential solar flare cards per type, so we have to be a little bit careful there. But if you guys feel strongly about it, I think the game is going to survive even if all the solar flare cards do get burned eventually. It is possible for the game to be fine. So it's just kind of a matter of what makes the most sense. All right, I'm going to go on to Land. So this is the next major gameplay update. Land will be visual. It's going to be a new map experience. The map will be mobile optimized. We are focused on getting the game working extremely smooth for mobile. So we are focused on this map being very performant and just everything working really smoothly on all mobile devices. Of course, it will still work on browser, but think of like being able to manage all your land, all the stuff building on it, manufacturing things, dealing with transportation, all that will be on mobile. So that's a big focus of ours. Just want to kind of get that out there before we get too far into the details. But the map experience itself, you'll basically load up a map and see the main settlement and the land there. And then around the main settlement, you'll see various land plots. We've talked about this before. And the plan is still relatively the same, where there's land where you can build structures on land. You're going to be mining for subsurface resources, and then you can build things on top. And the things that are being built on top is a little different, so I'm going to get into that. But how will you be able to buy land? So land will be sold via our in-game store. We are going to sell land as land packs. Well, I don't want to say anything on 100% because we obviously want some feedback on this. And if you guys feel like a certain type of sale mechanic would be better, we're open to that. But our current, what we really are pushing for is land to be available for Marsha at a 20% discount, as well as store credit for a 20% discount. So, this is, again, encouraging people to burn base cards, which you can get store credit and will continue to be able to get store credit for burning base cards for store credit. Both those will be used. You can buy land with both at a 20% discount. You can also buy with wax. We're going to keep that option open. Could it be possible to combine Marsha and credit? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how many people are actually going to need to combine them. I probably would say no. I think maybe just burn a couple more cards and get the credit you need to buy an additional land. But land will be organized into multiple tiers. So we basically have a rating system for land where it looks at location, it looks at the amount and rarity of the resources underneath the surface, which will be coming from a planetary geologist expert to help us map the resources and the likelihood of rare artifacts. Rare artifacts are valuable because you can actually exchange them directly for Marsha. And there will actually be a system that we're designing where you can, there will essentially be a automatic bidding, like an AI, not an AI, but like just an automatic bidding system where the bidding price for Marsha for a fire opal will go up in price until someone decides to sell their fire opal for Marsha, and then it will go down again. So it just continues to go up until someone sells their fire opal. Just give a sale option in the store to buy credit with Marsha to solve that. Yeah, I mean, sure. We'll look into it. It's still, in my opinion, a little bit low priority, but yeah. Fire opals are like kind of gonna be the thing on Mars. It's pretty cool. It's like a naturally occurring mineral, and they're gonna look awesome. And all right, so the tiers, I went through that, and essentially there will be, we're looking at 5 different tiers of rarity. And the highest tiers will essentially be the closest to the main settlement, which means your transportation costs are extremely low. And also will be the ones with the highest concentration of subsurface resources. We will also, so right now the thought is to sell them as mystery crates where you just get a random bundle of land around the map. We also are considering having essentially grouped land plots together as a product, sort of like a region. And that would be something we might auction off. It would be a lot rarer, and generally speaking, it would be a product targeted towards the larger holders. Yeah, regions are essentially for whales or communities. And that's essentially the buying process for land. So again, it will be pretty familiar with the similar store that we already have. And so what's the point? What's the point of getting land? So land will essentially give you a really good mechanism to farm parts as well as rare resources and artifacts. So resources, you'll have the ability to mine new resources, transforming those into refined resources, which can be used in manufacturing parts. So it's going to be kind of like one of the main ways to build parts. And then also you can build structures on land to extend your resource chain from the main colony, fill in gaps, and basically build that out. And then there's this entire new system of taking unrefined resources, transforming them into refined resources, and then manufacturing resources into parts, and then shipping those parts off to the main settlements, which allows you to extract them from the game or use them to build ownership cards. Okay, so building on land. So once you acquire a land plot, you can build structures, equipment, and vehicles using a crafting recipe that will combine parts, resources, and Martia. So the resources you need to build structures on land will be resources that are currently in the game, things like power and food and water and fuel and ore. And of course, you'll need Martia to build things on your land as well. These all these ingredients you'll basically be able to ship them to your land for a small transportation fee, and then based on your land position, it changes your transportation fee, and then build on land to start utilizing them. Structures. So just for me to back up for 1 minute, each land plot will be an NFT, but the structures on the land plot will only be attributes on the NFT. They won't be separate NFTs. So this allows for just a better system, a more interesting system for maintenance and repair, where things on land can actually be deactivated, potentially even destroyed if they're abandoned. And it creates a little bit more of an interesting system that takes some more oversight from the owner to maintain and make it cool. So if you sell your land, yes, you sell everything on it. And the price of land will also be affected by what's on it. Especially if you've built something like a refinery on land or a manufacturing facility on land or a transportation hub, which I'll get into in a minute, because those are going to be really valuable to the land process. So anyways, structures, they require maintenance and repair. You'll also need to hire astronauts into your land to operate equipment, just like the main resource chain. And astronauts can be hired for Martia for a certain contract length, but you'll need to make sure to import food and well-being to your land, or produce food and well-being on your land with certain structures in order to keep astronauts from canceling their contract early. All right, let me get to the chat real quick. So if you build something like a transportation hub that affects the value of land around it, very cool. Yeah, Yeah, transportation hubs are a good example of affecting the value around it, because think of a transportation hub as essentially a way to get your stuff from your land into the main settlement for a cheaper if your land is far away. So like if you have a land on like the far reaches of the map and there's a transportation hub right next to it, your cost for transporting it back to the settlement will be significantly cheaper than if you had to go all the way back to the main settlement every time you needed to trade. All right, so would adjacent land plot NFTs be burnable to combine them into another NFT, i.e. a larger single parcel of land? So for V1, we probably won't do something like this because it does add another layer of complexity to development. And we also think we can kind of get the same effect by selling regions where you can buy adjacent piece of land. And let's say you take one land plot and build a refinery on it. You take another land plot and builds transportation hub, and they're all next to each other and you control it. You're essentially building an estate with all of your stuff on it. You know, you can send or you know, you can send one to a community member and have them build stuff on it. Like you can do stuff like that with your community as well. So, you know, that's kind of how we're thinking about doing it for now, just to keep it a little bit more simple and easy to understand. All right, so mining on land. So mining is actually pretty interesting because the resources under land will get depleted over time based on how much you're mining. So let's say you're sitting on unrefined titanium, and over time you mine it. Well, that unrefined titanium, maybe you mine 80% of it. So not only will the amount of titanium you're mining per hour with your equipment start to go down, because you know it's basically just going to be like over time it will start to get a little bit harder to mine it, and eventually you know won't be profitable to mine your titanium. So then at some point you'll need to switch up, like basically salvage your equipment, which you'll be able to salvage structures on your land for parts, transition those parts into, you know, potentially mining for fire opals or some other resource. And then, you know, you can go and on your business to mine additional resources until your land basically is out of resources. Once your land is essentially out of resources, this is probably a good time to transition to surface based production, things like solar panels, mega power reactors to boost your power production, or to build a refinery or a transportation hub or something that doesn't require mining facilities. So mining is essentially going to be determined by the type of resource you have and under your land, and the quantity and the length of time that you can mine and the amount of resources you can mine will get depleted over time based on the deposits. So that kind of creates this dynamic element to mining and strategy, which we think is pretty cool. So we're gonna that's basically the plan for mining. All of the resources, subsurface resources that you get under land for mining are coming out of the ground as unrefined. This is pretty. I mean, it's pretty logical, and these are things that are going to be new resources. So, titanium, iron, silica, copper, gold, thorium, those kinds of things will be what's mined. It's not things that are really in the main resource chain, and we're doing that intentionally because we want these resources to basically be utilized primarily for refineries and manufacturing. So refineries. So basically what will happen is you mine unrefined resources, you send those to a refinery. Now everyone has access to the main settlement refinery, which has a fee. It'll be something like a 20% fee to send it there, plus transportation cost. And you'll get your refined minerals back and resources back. And then you can take your refined resources and either there's like two options. Some of these resources will be used in the main resource chain. And the thought there is certain resources will be used to temporarily boost your production of certain items. So for instance, you mine unrefined thorium on land, you refine it through the refinery, you can send it to your main settlement resource chain and use thorium to boost your mega power and fission reactor power production for a limited period of time. So we're thinking of them essentially as limited time boosts to resource production rather than adjusting inputs and outputs of the items in the main settlement. The other way that you'll probably use the majority of your land resources is manufacturing. So manufacturing facilities are structures that require Marcia resources, parts, and time to construct on land. And they will transform these resources into parts. And again, parts are used in tons of different applications, primarily to build structures on land or to build ownership cards in the main settlement. So you'll have basically these different ways of utilizing parts. You can build your own refinery, your own manufacturing facility on your land. However, you'll need a license from the ISA to build it. Licenses, just to kind of give you a sense of the range of a cost of a license, because they will be rare, are between 5 and 20 million Marcia. So licenses will be highly valued, and you need a license in order to build one of these on your land. And again, the other option is to use the main settlements refinery or manufacturing facility to build your parts. Transportation hubs are the third special item that you can build on land. This will be basically, like I mentioned, it's used as almost a shipping hub, an exchange for getting between land and the main settlement. And land close to the main settlement will incur lower transportation costs, but transportation hubs, like I mentioned, will enable owners further from the main settlement to send resources, parts, and artifacts more affordably and efficiently. So yeah, that's kind of the flow of land. So you have your land plot itself or land plots. You're going to be building structures on these, managing mining, managing resource production, and then sending some of these resources to refineries, sending the refined resources to manufacturing hubs, building parts, and having a steady stream of parts, which will allow you to build additional structures, repair, etc. And then sending those to and from the main settlement with transportation. So things like vehicles will cheapen transportation costs as well. Astronauts will be needed to run mining facilities, to repair different things, and those cost Marcia to hire. Pretty much all of these activities will also cost Marcia. We will look at how to burn as much of that Marcia as possible. So this should be a massive Marcia sink and massive Marcia burn, just generally speaking across the board. So, all right. Any idea how many Marcia land packs there will be? We're still figuring it out. We think somewhere around 2,000 is where we would start, and we're looking at a price of around $100 per land. And then if you buy a pack, it will get a lot cheaper. If you buy like a pack of 10 land plots, you'll get sort of a bigger discount. And then you can stack that on top of a Marcia discount if you pay with Marcia. And again, we're still working out the numbers, but I just wanted to give you a sense of where we're looking at. That might it might change. We'll try not to change too much, but you know. $100, not 1,000, mind you. And is one plot per land pack or multiple plots? So I believe we'll have an option to buy one and then an option to buy multiple as well. So there will be a couple different products. The cheapest one being a single plot, and then you can get higher odds of higher tiered lands and more lands for a more expensive price but cheaper per unit price. And again, all of land will be you can purchase it with Marcia, as well as store credit, and licenses to build these special pieces on land will also be purchasable with Marcia. These licenses will go between $5 to $20 million or Marcia based on the type of structure. For instance, certain refineries will be reserved for refining advanced materials. Those will be on the higher end of licensing. And then some of the more common resources, like refineries for resources, will be on the lower end of Marcia license. All right. Let me just make sure I got all the questions. All right. I still don't understand the interconnection between Mission Control and Martian Resident. So, Mission Control and Martian Resident, first of all, you'll have the connection by being able to purchase tickets like astronauts in Mission Control or Martian Resident with Marcia. So there will be a connection point to use Marcia to purchase in-game items through both Martian Resident and Outpost Surge. In terms of Martian Residents, we are also committed to finding a way to connect the missions in Mission Control to the missions in Martian Residents, so that you can actually see the connection points there in the economy. Yeah, right. If there's one land in a pack, then the pack will start at $100. If there's multiple packs, so think of like a 10 pack, like a pack with 10 land plots would be something like $700 or $800, because we would offer a discount for the higher quantity that you're purchasing. And we also will look at essentially having higher rarity tiers of land in some of the packs. But just generally, like the base sort of price for a land plot at the current moment is around $100. And that's kind of how we're basing the economy and building out the systems right now, with around 2,000 plots being the supply, the initial supply. And then we're looking at a mechanism to raise the price of each additional land plot by a certain amount, because we do want the ability for this to expand over time, but we also want there to be some pressure on to make sure it doesn't expand infinitely. All right, I think I got to everything that I needed to in terms of going through the roadmap. If you guys like this, if you can, it would really help to go and react to the Medium article. Go give it a round of applause or whatever the thing is. Comment something positive on that. That would be awesome for us. And, you know, we're super excited about building this. LAN, we will get started on in July. It's not going to be done by July, but we will get started on it next month after we wrap up some of the other things. And yeah, we're really looking forward to the future. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you for your comments too. Got a lot of good comments here. Charlie, are you riding a horse?
No, although it sounds like I've got I'm actually surprised you can hear the hammering in my brain. Actually no. it's hammering going on outside of me.
Thought I was on Monty Python for a minute.
Yeah, that's true, huh? Little Holy Grail. All righty, everybody. See you next week.
Thanks, folks. See ya.
Bye.